If you're experiencing some irregularities in the heating functionality of your car's HVAC system, a potential failure point could be the heater control valve. Symptoms would include no heat, always on heat, or erratic heat operation despite no changes to the controls. Additionally, this plastic part can crack due to age and develop a coolant leak. There are some diagnostic tests that will help determine if the diaphragm has failed, if you've checked that the vacuum lines are properly connected, and that the actuating arm isn't seized. Operation can be observed while someone changes the temperature setting inside the car. If you've determined that the valve needs to be replaced, here's how it's done. Here's a look at the heater control valve. Coolant passes through the center of the valve. This side connects to the coolant flange on the back of the cylinder head. The other side connects to a supply line to the heat exchanger. We have the diaphragm inside here, and the vacuum line connects on the end. The actuating arm, AUF for on or off, closed. So coolant passes through the valve. That allows heat to the heat exchanger, gives heat inside the car. If it's closed, that will give me my cold air or air conditioning. And we can test this just by kind of closing off the vacuum line. So I put my finger on there and depress the arm. There's some resistance. And also if I push in the arm and put my finger on the end, it's holding a vacuum. So a pretty simple system, but they do break down over time due to age and may need to be replaced. As a side note, if you're experiencing an always-on heat condition and the heater control valve checks out okay, there could also be some cracked or damaged vacuum lines to or from the heating system and connecting to the valve. So a good idea to inspect and test those as well. Another potential cause could be a bad heating solenoid valve. It's located on the passenger side of the heating system up underneath the dash, and you'll have to remove the glove compartment to access it. And a third common cause for the always-on heat is a failed damper linkage underneath the driver's side. There's a plastic cover, and if you remove that, there's a couple of metal linkage arms that come down, and they're secured by plastic clips, plastic bearings, and those bearings crack and fail over time. So if you pull this off and you have some metal rods just hanging there, it's not closing the ventilation flap properly, so check those out as well. A quick note on preparation. So essentially the valve connects to this coolant flange at the back of the cylinder head, and while it's not absolutely necessary to completely drain the engine block of coolant, if you decide not to perform any draining, there will be a small amount of coolant that will empty when the valve is disconnected, and if the front of the car is elevated, expect a little bit more than you would think to come out. The valve is located at the rear of the engine compartment, in between the engine and the firewall, and it's quite buried back here. It's just a matter of disconnecting the vacuum line and removing the two hose clamps, and depending upon how those screw heads are positioned, you may be able to do it without removing any other components on the car, but removing the intake manifold typically allows for more space. And just pop the new one into those hoses, secure it down, reconnect the line, and you're good to go. And so here's the new one, all locked in. In this case, I wasn't able to get a little nub screwdriver in there, so I had to slowly use a little 6mm wrench. And inside, this one had some debris. It is holding a vacuum, but the seal inside the valve is starting to come out, and it moves very slowly. So it's a good time to replace it. And we'll say goodbye to that one. With the new heater control valve installed, we can refill, pressurize, and bleed the coolant system, check for leaks, and test the temperature functionality of the HVAC system.